Today is Thursday, July 17, 2025. I'm Kira, your pastoral intern, and this is Wilderness Wanderings. Our text for today is from Philippians 3, verses 18 to 20a. For as I have often told you before, and now tell you again, even with tears, many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their destiny is destruction, their God is their stomach, and their glory is in their shame. Their mind is set on earthly things, but our citizenship is in heaven. In today's verses, Paul is building off of those previous. Having encouraged the Philippians to find models to imitate, they must also be warned against those in whose footsteps they ought not to follow. The challenge is who these people are. You may recall that in our exploration of this letter, there have been several passages where Paul makes accusations and warns the Philippian church against groups of people. So is he referring to one of these already mentioned groups? Those preaching out of rivalry from chapter 1, verses 15 to 17? Those who oppose and persecute believers from chapter 1, verse 28? Those judaizers we discussed in the early verses of chapter 3, who advocated for circumcision among Gentile converts? Or maybe even those Paul briefly alludes to in 2 verse 21, who seek their own self-interest? The truth is that we really don't know. And so we have to be careful about using this text to extrapolate into our context and pronounce our own judgment on those we consider to be enemies of the cross of Christ. In a divided culture, verses like this can be used in pretty self-serving and antagonistic ways. But that's not the posture that the rest of this letter has been teaching us to take. So if we seek to avoid this error, what do these verses teach, even warn us about? The first thing we see is that Paul grieves for enemies of the cross of Christ. He is not making a triumphalistic declaration that those with whom he disagrees are enemies of Christ doomed for destruction. Rather, he grieves for those who are misguided, who do not know Christ, whose mind is set on earthly things. Paul's is not a posture of hostility, resentment, or self-righteousness. He has the same kind of compassion for these enemies of the cross that Jesus had weeping over Jerusalem in Luke 19. A heart broken, not hardened, by the disobedience of others. But what is it exactly that causes Paul to lament for this group of people? What do these verses say constitutes being an enemy of the cross of Christ? It is first necessary to highlight that he calls this group enemies of the cross of Christ, not just enemies of Christ. Some scholars suggest this may mean that those Paul is referring to are not pagan tormentors of the church, or those with lifestyles and belief systems diametrically opposed to the followers of Christ. Rather, these may be believers, people who, as Pastor Michael described yesterday, maybe believe some of the right truths about Christ, but are opposed to the way of the cross as a way of life. They may claim salvation, but are unwilling to undergo the path of discipleship we have talked about over the last couple of days, and really throughout the whole letter to the Philippians. The cross, for Paul, is the emblem of salvation, of knowledge of and participation in Christ. Cross-centered discipleship is the call of the Christian life. To crucify all privileges, status, wealth, perceived self-sufficiency, in order to participate in Christ's suffering and death, is to affirm one's heavenly citizenship. This is not a preoccupation with heaven to the neglect of life on earth, but a willingness to surrender all that is of perceived earthly value for the sake of Christ and his kingdom. So where might you be resisting the call of the cross-shaped life? For whom might you intercede, even through tears, that they would come to know only Christ and him crucified? So as you journey on, go with the blessing of God. May the peace of the Lord Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors.